Hi everyone, welcome back to the next Diecast. In today's video, I'll be showing you and reviewing this 1/18 scale 2004 Chevrolet Impala police car made by Maisto. Now this is a re-released model that Maisto is selling exclusively at Sam's Club for 2022. Now currently, this California Highway Patrol version is the only version that you can find of this Impala model from Maisto. In the past, Maisto also made the police versions in other liveries. They made an NYPD version, a Tennessee State Trooper version, and there was also a military livery. It had like a military symbol on the front door here. And Maisto also made a taxi version of the Impala that came as a Chicago taxi. And Maisto also made a version of the regular kind of street version of the Impala in the form of the Impala SS, or Super Sport. And the Super Sport, of course, had different wheels. It had silver 5-spoke wheels, as opposed to the police and taxi dog dish wheels that you see here. Now, Maisto made the original police and taxi versions from, I think, around 2000 until 2004, and they made the SS from around 2004 until 2007. And all versions of this model are going to be kind of hard to come by now. This version you see here currently goes for usually between $30 and $50 on eBay, but if you are a member of Sam's Club, you can probably still find it at Sam's Club for $17. And the other versions that Maisto made of the police and taxi versions kind of go for around the same amount, but that's usually for versions that are out of the box and in kind of varying degrees of condition and whatnot. Now, for the SS version that Maisto made, that's going to be a little bit higher priced because it is kind of harder to find now. That version I have seen go for over $100 on several occasions over the years. And that version only came in black. I'm not sure if I mentioned that or not, but these are going to be kind of harder to find compared to other Maisto models, or at least that's just what I've noticed over the years. So you're going to probably expect to pay a bit more for one of these than you would for another Maisto model of the same vintage. Now, it's worth mentioning that Maisto does call this police version here, the California Highway Patrol version, an Impala SS. And you'll actually see on the base here, it says SS down there. In actuality, this is an Impala 9C1. There was never a police Impala SS or Super Sport. And I'll kind of go over the differences between the SS model that Maisto made and the police and taxi versions as I get throughout the video here. But overall, I think Maisto did an excellent job with this model, and we'll kind of go ahead and take a look at the details throughout and kind of compare this to the SS and to the older versions of this casting that Maisto sold prior to 2007. So we'll go ahead and start up here with the front of the model. I think Maisto overall got the shape and look of the Impala definitely accurate. This generation was sold from 2000 until 2005. Definitely an overall excellent job with the casting's shape and just overall look. In the front here, Maisto, I think, does do a good job with these headlights. There is kind of a gap, as you see here on this side here, but you can't really see it from like a far distance. All the bulbs are kind of nicely cast in there. There are pegs, but the pegs are kind of tucked away in the corner of this light here, kind of next to the grill. So you can't really see it too well unless you look at it kind of closely. And then in the center here, Maisto does actually put on a perforated grill, which is very nice to see. You do have that Chevrolet bow tie symbol in the center there, kind of surrounded by this chrome piece. And the Impala did have the blue Chevrolet badge as opposed to the gold one from 2000 until 2005. And then in the front here, you'll see that there is a push bar, which Maisto does include on the police versions of this casting. You can see, I think it's well integrated into the body. And then you have kind of these blue lower lights here, and also this kind of PA system down there as well. And this is very sturdy with the body, which is nice to see. The lower bumper is done in plastic, but you can't really tell because Maisto does do a good job of kind of painting it to match the metal parts of the body. Speaking of the paint on this California Highway Patrol version looks awesome, and I think the same will hold true for all the other versions of this Impala casting. This is actually a metallic black, which I was kind of surprised to see, because if this were a real, law enforcement vehicle, you probably wouldn't have a metallic black. It would kind of be more of like a gloss black, but the paint just looks incredible. It's nice and smooth throughout, and I think Maisto did an overall good job kind of accurately portraying the California Highway Patrol livery on this casting. Of course, you are missing the motto back here. It should say safety and service, but they didn't put anything back there. Not a big deal. And then I think there should be a Highway Patrol inscription back here, but instead you have the Impala badge, which I'm fine with. But aside from that, though, I mean, the paint is just incredible. With the white, you have kind of a gloss finish, and then with the black, you have a metallic kind of like metal flake finish, and it just looks awesome. And all the lettering and tampos on the sides are painted on. They're not just stickers, which is amazing to see. And then you have this nice Impala insignia back here behind the rear window, which looks very well done. And then, of course, you do get the light bar up on the roof here. This is the vector style of light bar that you were kind of seeing a lot of on these law enforcement vehicles in the early to mid 2000s. It is very sturdy. You could probably pick up the car by. I'm not, of course, going to do that, and I definitely wouldn't recommend doing that. But it is kind of nice and sturdy on the model, which is very nice to see. And then you do have the dog dish wheels on this car as well. They have kind of a very small Chevrolet bow tie symbol in the center there. And you will see these same wheels for all versions of Maisto's Impala Police and Taxi versions. And of course, with the model, you do have full steering. Kind of noisy a little bit, but not a big deal. And suspension as well, which is nice to say. And it is kind of noisy back here, but that's probably just a factory defect for my model. You do have the antenna mounted back here, and it is a little bit loose, but I don't think that's a big deal. And then taking a look at the back, you have kind of this single light bar that the 2005 Impala was kind of famous for. You have kind of 4 distinct light assemblies, I guess, back here. This whole thing wouldn't light up. You have kind of just the 4 round, like, actual taillight bulbs back there. But this whole thing is held on by several pegs, but it is kind of hard to see said pegs. I mean, you have one here and then one there. I can't really tell. Yeah, there's pegs in the center of this part too, but I don't think that's a big deal. At least they decided to make this as a whole entire separately cast plastic piece instead of just painting the whole thing on. That would definitely not have looked great, but I think overall they did do a decent job with these taillights back here. Then you do have kind of that smaller brake light painted on here. That would be kind of hard to make as a separately cast plastic piece, so not a big deal that it's just painted on there. And you do see the Impala inscription back here, done in silver. And kind of an odd feature is that they put the license plate from their NYPD Impala on this California Highway Patrol version. So kind of odd, but at least there is a license plate back there. I may change it to like a California plate in the future, but I'll probably just leave it on there for obscurity's sake, I suppose. Now, with opening features on the model, you do have the opening rear trunk, so we'll take a look at that first. And you'll see that we do have kind of a basic trunk back here. If this were a real police cruiser, you would kind of see some equipment and other stuff kind of stowed away back there, but at least it is kind of the basic shape and size you would see if this were the real car, and there is kind of a nice texture in there. But aside from that, there really is not too much to talk about back here. Next, we'll take a look at the engine of this model. Now, with the Impala 9C1 and the Impala SS, you do have 2 different engines. They both have the same V6, although the SS has a supercharged version. And as you can see here, this is just a regular version, which would be accurate to a Impala 9C1. You can see it says 3800 V6 on there. This is all just one single plastic piece, but at least it is the accurate engine. Maisto didn't put the SS engine on the police version. Although Maisto calls this an SS, it wouldn't technically be an SS if it were a real law enforcement vehicle. But again, back to the engine. It is kind of just one single plastic piece. There is some kind of slight depth on this side. You see some kind of 3-dimensional wires, and you can kind of see down in the bottom of the car in this area here, and kind of back there a little bit. But aside from that, I think some more detailing would have been welcome. But then again, this model was originally made around 2000, and in 2004 for the SS version. So I think what you have in there is decently done. You do see kind of the 3800 inscription right there along with that V6. And you have a couple of warning labels up there. So I think overall they did do a decent job in there. So next we'll take a look at the interior of the model here. You do have opening front doors, of course. These open up on dogleg hinges as opposed to spring-loaded hinges. So these might kind of get loose over time, so I wouldn't open them up too often. But that being said, they do open up at a pretty wide angle, which is nice to see. Then you can kind of see the details nice and easy, both on like the dashboard and with the door panels and everything. And speaking of the door panels, there isn't a whole lot to see on these door panels. They have kind of a nice, I guess, kind of like a vinyl pattern on them. You do kind of have the molded in door handles and a few buttons. I guess there would kind of be some more coloring if this were the real car. I don't think there would be much aside from that, because the police versions were kind of very sparse with, you know, extra buttons and kind of coloring and stuff like that. So the SS door panels will be kind of the same, but they'll have kind of a light gray look to them as opposed to this black look that you see here. The rest of the interior, I would say, is very well done, and this will hold true for the other police and the taxi versions of this Maisto model. Now, for the police and taxi versions, you're going to mostly see a blue interior. I think this is the only black interior that Maisto did for the police and taxi Impalas. But the detailing is overall very well done. You can see on the dashboard here, it has kind of a nice, almost like a vinyl pattern. You have the airbag symbol up on top, and then you have the Impala inscription in the center of that passenger side there. On the center stack, you do have some buttons. There aren't too many because for the Impala 9C1 and for the LS kind of base trim, you didn't really have the whole lot. I don't even know if there's like a radio there. On the SS version, you are going to see a lot more buttons and everything, and that is accurate to that version. And this stripe you see in the center, I know for some Impala trims that was wood grain, but I guess for the police version, they just have it as like an all black look for simplicity's sake. You also have excellent detailing for all the different radios and all the different kind of lights and siren buttons in this center portion here. And this would be accurate to the real Impala 9C1. All the different wiring and everything is there. All the buttons are colored in. I assume if these were real buttons, they would have some kind of labeling on them aside from just being painted. But Maisto did an excellent job with these components too. And you're going to kind of see the same for the other versions of this casting. I think the taxi version has a similar kind of setup for the middle, although instead of this radar unit you see up here, you're going to get, I think, a silver kind of like meter sort of thing that goes behind the steering wheel. But just overall excellent detailing for all the different like components that you would see if this were a real vehicle. And that's just awesome to see that. And the detailing does continue on the steering wheel. Has a nice texture to it. You do have that Chevrolet bow tie symbol in the center there. And you also have the SRS airbag symbol. And the gauge cluster is a sticker, but at least the gauges look accurate. And the radar looks awesome too. There is buttons. They're just kind of very tiny and hard to say, but Maisto really did pay attention to the details on this model. And you were kind of seeing that a lot on early 2000s Maisto castings. Just the interiors were just over the top in terms of detailing. And that is really cool to see that Maisto kind of brought all these details back to this model when they re-released it. And the excellent detailing continues for the seats as well. Now for the Impala SS model that Maisto made, the seats are going to have a similar shape but a different texture. You're going to have kind of a more, almost like a leather smooth pattern. And the headrests are going to have kind of a different shape to them. But for the police versions, you have kind of this, almost like a fabric pattern. It looks incredibly well done. The seats, I think, are a bit on the small side, but at least the overall shape and look looks spot on. And the same goes for the passenger seat, too. And speaking of the seats, you also have great detailing for the back seat as well. It is kind of hard to see through this window, but you have the same kind of texture you would see for the two front seats, and you see 3 different seat belts back there, too. Just incredible. And also, of course, you do get the partition separating the front seats from the rear seats. You don't have any clear plastic inside these windows here. They're just kind of like hollowed out. I assume if this were the real car, you would have kind of plastic windows in there or like plexiglass or something, but you're not going to really be able to tell when you have the doors shut that there's nothing there. It's just an empty hole. But just the interior is incredibly done, I think. This is definitely one of Maisto's better models from like the early 2000s era in terms of just finer detailing, all the different buttons and everything. Just very well done. And again, the interiors of the other versions, like for that NYPD version and for the taxi version, will be blue as opposed to black. But all the detailing will be the same. I think the radios are going to be black regardless, but everything else, like the seats, the dashboard, and steering wheel and door panels, will be blue. And of course, for the SS version, that's going to have a light gray interior and have some kind of different details that would be accurate to the real car. And then for the undercarriage, not a whole lot to say. Again, Maisto did use the base from the SS for this 9C1 casting, but they're going to have identical undercarriages from what I've seen. You're going to have that same kind of chrome single exhaust pipe going throughout the bottom. And I think that is accurate to the real car too. So aside from that, there really is not too much to talk about down there. Overall, I'm very, very excited to finally have a version of Maisto's Impala for my collection. And if you're a member of Sam's Club and can still find this there, I would say absolutely get it. For $17, it is just an absolute steal. And even if you're not a member of Sam's Club, you can find this particular version of this model on eBay for usually under $50. And I'd say for that, that's definitely still a fair price, considering that this model is pretty well detailed. And it should be a relatively limited production run. I don't know how many exact units Maisto is going to make, but it should probably, I think, be discontinued after this year, unfortunately. But maybe they'll bring it back again next year in like a different livery or something. That would be so cool to see that. But if you can find this, or even like the other versions, like the NYPD or that taxi version, or even the SS, you're going to expect to probably pay more for any of these than you would of a typical kind of other Maisto model, because these are pretty desirable, and they are, I think, just harder to find in general. So, but if you like the model enough, and I think it's an awesome model, and if you find it for a fair price or even a really good deal, definitely get it. I think it would look good in any collection of, just a 1/18 scale cars in general, especially if you're a fan of like, service vehicles or of the Impala in general. This is the only model in 1/18 scale that was made of the 2000 through 2005 Impala. So that is kind of cool to think about. I hope this video was kind of a helpful look at this model. I really had a fun time with, filming it and everything. And feel free to comment down below with your thoughts on the model as well. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.